Quick introduction. So, my name's Phil Nguyen. I'm the head of advertising at eBay for the UK. And I've been at eBay for what can only be described as a ridiculous amount of time. So, I've been there for 9 years, 7 years working on the Australian business and 2 years working on the UK business. And in the 9 years that I've been at eBay, I've seen a blistering amount of change in the retail world. So, I mean, if we think all the way back to the future, the advent of online commerce democratized the way that we think about value and how we think about convenience. And in more recent times, the rise of smartphones has enabled us to browse and buy and make purchases wherever we want. And the resultant effect of this is that the nature of the high street as we used to know it has had to change. You could actually say that there's been more change in the world of retail in the last 5 years than there has been in the last 50 years. And that given the pace of innovation that we're still seeing today, we could expect retail to stay on that trajectory of change for at least the next 5 years. So the world of retail as we know it has fundamentally changed. So where are we today and where should we expect to be in the future? So being the data-hungry organization that we are at eBay Advertising, we decided to commission a piece of research in conjunction with the Internet Media and Retail Group, the IMRG, to answer some of these questions. So we surveyed a group of 1,000 UK consumers to get a better steer on what consumer behaviour is looking like today. And then we pulled together a group of the industry's brightest minds from a retail and marketing standpoint to get their opinions on where retail is going to head in the next 5 years. So the resultant output is a research paper called that we've called From the High Street to the I Street, and it'll be available on the ebayadvertising.com website in the coming weeks. But what I wanted to share with you guys today was a bit of an abridged teaser version, if you will. So let's get into it. So a bit of a context setting forward from our CEO, John Donahoe, if you will. So John went on record recently to say that online and offline commerce are changing. Innovation is dramatically influencing how buyers and sellers connect and how consumers shop and pay. Across commerce and offline retail, this wave of innovation will affect everyone. And while the changes will be massively disruptive for some, for others, significant opportunities will be created. The new rules of retail are being written. And I think this is a really significant statement, given that it's coming from one of the organizations that changed the way that we shop over 15 years ago. And I think that depending on what side of the coin you're on, it can either be a really exciting time to be in the world of retail or a really daunting time to be in the world of retail. But let's talk a little bit about the here and now. So let's get into the research and some of the insights that we were able to get out of it. So first off, online shopping has increased across the board. So when we asked UK consumers how their online shopping habits had changed in just the last 12 months, nearly 90% of them told us that they bought either more or the same amount online than they did last year. And there was some data released recently from the Forrester Group that predicted that in the UK, we should expect to see over the next 5 years double-digit growth in online retail. So it is still growing at a blistering pace. There's a lot of runway left in terms of how online commerce will progress. So a lot going on there. And I think that the impact of this growth is probably been most evident in the changing nature of the high street. So this is a bit of a sad slide, thus the use of nostalgia-inducing black and white tones. But if you think about the kinds of products and services that have been bought online for the longest amount of time, like entertainment or like travel, you see a couple of interesting stories come out. So you see once mighty high street brands who have now disintegrated and disappeared into the wind. And you see some instances of businesses that have been able to stay ahead of the curve and been able to adapt to the changing consumer force of spending habits moving online and been able to adapt their businesses online. Either way, though, I think that there's no doubting the fact that the consumer shift online has had a tremendous effect on the way that retailers think about how they run their operations. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are some retailers that we think have embraced online particularly well, and I think Tesco and John Lewis are two of the shining star examples of that. And these are two businesses that have, A, been pretty quick to move online. Two, they're organizations that are really passionate about delivering a world-class shopping experience, regardless of what platform that user's on, whether they're in the store, whether they're on the website. And they're organizations that are deadly passionate about using their wealth of consumer data to optimize their businesses. And I think ultimately, the lesson here is that retail businesses need to stay nimble in order to adapt to the market conditions. And as the evolution of consumer behavior continues, we think that the businesses that are most able to innovate, stay nimble, and commit to their online strategies will be the ones that command the greatest share of spend, both online and offline. And look, even categories that you could have argued had no possibility of scaling online because of the tactile nature of the purchase, such as clothing or groceries, where you needed to, touch the item, feel the item, smell it, wear it, put it on, throw it up in the air, have now become powerhouses in the world of online retail. So fashion today is one of the fastest growing verticals in online retail. Groceries is one of the largest verticals in online retail. And both of them have crossed this figurative tipping point where when we surveyed UK consumers, more than 50% of them told us that they were buying either the same amount or more online as they were offline. So I think that the benefits of the online shopping experience and the way that these businesses have been able to evolve over the last couple of years has really injected these verticals with a high degree of consumer confidence. So let's take fashion, for example, right? I think that the way that a lot of clothing retailers online are now displaying their clothes and allowing people to be able to see them from different angles and showing them with videos, I think is tremendous progress. And the fact that free returns are now becoming even more prevalent on online shopping sites for clothing means that consumers now have no qualms at all with buying a jacket sight unseen without ever trying it on before. So I think the advancements that we've seen in these verticals have really injected shoppers with a high degree of consumer confidence. Now, I think this one's particularly interesting. So one of the insights that came out of the research was an understanding of how platforms play a role in today's shopping experience. And perhaps unsurprisingly, laptops and desktop PCs still rule the roost when it comes to our preferred way to browse and shop online. But what was really interesting was that 35% of UK consumers told us that they are already using their smartphones to browse when they're shopping, which I think is huge progress. What's even more interesting, though, is that only 9% of them told us that they were actually using their smartphones to close a purchase. So I think that's an interesting thing, this gap between likelihood to browse and likelihood to purchase on a smartphone device, because what kinds of questions does it bring up? Does it say that consumer confidence is not yet ready? Or does it say that retailers aren't yet delivering a retail experience on mobile devices that are worthwhile? Well, my personal opinion, it's probably a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. I think another really interesting insight that came out of the platform part of the research was, again, this gap between likelihood to browse and likelihood to purchase on a tablet device being far lower. And, it's still in its infancy, but I think it brings up some interesting insights about how UK consumers are using their tablet devices. So are they shopping more on their tablet devices because of the size of the screen? Or is it simply point to the fact that they may just be using their tablets in the same way that they use their laptops? So I think some really interesting stuff, but we'll talk a little bit more about mobile when we get to the bit about the future. Okay. But thankfully, some things never change. So this result was quite comforting to me, because when we surveyed UK consumers and asked them, what are the key reasons for you to increase your online shopping? And they told us resoundingly that they shop online more because of convenience, value, and choice. And the reason that's comforting to me is because for the last 15 years at eBay, these have been the same three core pillars that have driven forward our strategy. And I'm going to go out on a limb and probably predict that for the next 5 years, these will be the same three core pillars. So convenience, value, and choice. Now, I think it's also really important to take scope of how consumer purchase decisions are being influenced today. So I wanted to share with you guys some insights from the world of advertising. So when surveyed, UK consumers told us resoundingly that they noticed adverts on shopping sites more so than on any other online medium. Now, you could look at this result and think that it's a little bit of a no-brainer. So they're shoppers, they're in a retail mindset, they've got their wallets open, they're ready to buy something. They obviously should be more open to commercial messages. But I actually think that the insight's a bit deeper than that. So my belief is that on shopping sites, the average consumer doesn't differentiate between what might be a paid-for ad and what might be an internal product recommendation, or what we might call merchandising in the retail world. And as a result, they're far more susceptible to having their purchase behavior be influenced via adverts. So these communication opportunities on shopping sites are something that we're starting to call online retail media. And we think that it's a pretty significant trend in the industry, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we think it's going when we get to the bit about the future. And still on the point of advertising, so the topic of cookies and behavioral targeting is probably one of the most fervently debated topics in our industry today. So we thought, why not ask consumers about what they thought about it? So the good news is that when we asked consumers how they felt about ads being more targeted to them, over 80% of consumers across all age segments, across all gender groups, told us that they were either positive to neutral about having more adverts targeted to them, which I think is really positive for our industry, because from an advertising standpoint, utilizing our data is the lifeblood of what makes online advertising work. And I think that from a retail standpoint, particularly within eBay, it's our way of being able to use adverts as a way of driving value and selection. And from a consumer's perspective, I think it makes complete sense, right? So better targeting equals more relevant advertising and better content for consumers, which in turn drives better results for advertisers. So here are some screen grabs of a highly targeted campaign that we ran recently for the fashion brand Bench, where Bench were not only able to utilize eBay advertising's ability to target on age and gender and context, but they were also able to use our ability to target using purchase behavior and purchase intent. So what we were able to do for Bench was create custom audience segments that were able to get in front of this Bench campaign, the users on eBay that were most susceptible to buy their item. So whilst we're not allowed to share the results of the campaign just yet, I thought I'd share with you guys, because I think it's a pretty cool example of how you can use targeted advertising to drive better relevancy for consumers and better results for the advertiser. So that was some of the highlights in terms of what we thought was interesting about what consumers are doing today. Let's look into the crystal ball and share with you guys some insights around what we think will happen in the future. So again, we pulled together some of the smartest folks in the world of retail and marketing, and the full output will be in the white paper, which will be on the website, but these are some of the more interesting ones that I wanted to share with you guys today. So the first one is that we believe the consumer of tomorrow will feel more empowered than ever before to shop on their terms, whether that be at home, on the move, in the office, on public transport, wherever it may be. They may want to buy it at home and get it delivered to work, buy it on the website and pick it up in store the day after. Simply put, consumers are going to expect to buy where they want, how they want, and when they want. And then the challenge then shifts to retailers to be able to deliver that world-class experience that consumers are going to expect. This is going to be par for the course. And we're already seeing pockets of it happening around today. And I've got a bit of an anecdote that happened to me this week that I wanted to share with you guys, where so I'm Australian, and I have this ridiculous Australian optimism when it comes to the weather. So when I look outside the window and I see sunshine, I think that it's t-shirt time. And what my brain hasn't clicked onto yet is that sometimes sunshine can mean blistering cold in the UK. So when I left the office the other week, when the cold snap kicked in, I was shivering, but it was too late to head back home to pick up a jacket. But when I got into the office, I jumped onto the Ted Baker website, one of my favorite brands. I was browsing through their winter collection, and I picked out a lovely coat that I wanted to buy. I confirmed the order at 9:15 a.m. and selected same-day delivery, posted to work. And by 4 p.m. that day, I had that coat in my hands. So I had this wonderful smug sense of satisfaction that the world of online retail had met my needs in the way that I wanted to that day. So we can only expect more of this to happen. So consumers will expect to shop on their terms. And, free same-day delivery today is probably considered a bit of a luxury for buyers. In tomorrow's world, that'll be par for the course. Another interesting trend that we might expect to see is as retailers kind of rationalize their high street presence and what they do with their bricks and mortar stores, we can expect to see the advent of more delivery collection points. And actually, a couple of weeks after we finished the research, Amazon announced that they were starting a trial where they were launching collection delivery points at retail locations around London to make it even easier for... Smile. Great. to make it even easier for their consumers to pick up their items when they're out and about, or to enable Amazon shoppers to be able to have a place that they could get their purchases delivered to if they couldn't have them delivered to work. And at the extreme end of the spectrum, we could even see retail businesses merge or partner with postal delivery services as retail companies wisen up to the fact that the fulfillment part of the shopping process becomes such a key aspect of how they optimize their businesses, and consumers use it as an even greater differentiating point when it comes to choosing where they want to shop. I think that's an inevitable trend that we'll start to see. So, the next insight. So as the nature of the high street changes, and as retailers become more adept at delivering seamless multi-channel experiences both online and offline, we can expect some brands to use their offline retail outlets to drive what we're calling experiential retail. Now, I think this is quite different because it's thinking about your retail store, not about trying to move product. It's more about thinking about how you use your retail presence to build an even deeper level of engagement with your consumers. And we think two of the brands that are doing it particularly well today are Apple and Nike, right? And if you go into any of their retail stores, it's not set up to try to move people through to the cash register as quickly as possible. It's about these brands opening up the opportunity to allow their customers to get engrossed in their brand, allowing them to play around with their products and to feel great about why they're a person that's affiliated with that kind of brand. And, I'm going to put my hands up and say that, I'm a victim of this retail trickery. I'm a self-professed Apple fanboy. And I did shed a bit of a tear the other week when the news about Steve Jobs went around. And I may or may not have pulled together all of my Apple products as a makeshift shrine. But you can often find me in the beautifully constructed Apple retail stores with no intent whatsoever to buy anything. I may pop in because they show films and documentaries that I'm interested in. I pop in because they often have bands playing there that I enjoy listening to. I pop in because they do free courses that teach me how to use my expensive SLR camera that I only ever leave on auto mode. So experiential retail is something that we can expect some brands to tap into more, to think about how they optimize their bricks and mortar presence. And on top of being able to build a deeper level of engagement with their consumers, it's actually also a really great way to maintain a level of pricing, premium pricing, which I think Apple has done particularly well in their instance. So experiential retail. And yes, mobile, so you can't really have a conversation about the future of retail without talking about mobile. So if we think of the last few years as being about the rise of mobile adoption, we can think about the next 5 years as about being the rise of mobile usage. So the amount of utility that you can now get out of a device that fits into your pocket, I think, is absolutely tremendous. And quite simply put, you will soon have the ability to have a complete store in your pocket. A store where you can buy, sell, compare, browse, locate, reserve, whatever it may be. And I think that retailers have only just started scraping the surfaces of how they leverage the immense power that you can get out of one of these devices. And there were some figures released by eBay about 3 weeks ago that announced that now in the UK, 10% of our purchases are happening on a mobile device. And that we've got one item selling on one of eBay's apps or web platforms every second. So the shift of consumers being a lot more confident with buying on a mobile device is increasing, but that gap's still there, as I brought up earlier. And the challenge will be for retailers to step up to this challenge and really deliver experiences that consumers want to engage in. Now, as retailers develop and execute on their multi-channel strategies, we think one of the key areas we should expect to continue to see develop is how retailers manage their concessionary activity. And this is not just about shifting end-of-line or remnant stock. It's about retailers thinking about how they use multiple channels to really maximize their distribution. And simply having a bricks and mortar store as well as a website is not enough anymore to maximize your sales. Retailers will need to continue to break free of these shackles and start thinking about where else they might want to distribute their stock. And they need to break down those four walls that I think have previously held them back from maximizing the opportunity in online retail. And I think it's been particularly evident on eBay, where in recent months we've launched on eBay retail outlets with huge brands like House of Fraser, Superdry, and BMW, where these guys are shifting not only remnant stock but also in-season stock through eBay. And I think it marks a tremendous shift in the thinking of not only the retailers to break down these four walls of how they distribute, but also on eBay's behalf. Because I can very honestly say that 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have had the willingness nor the capabilities to launch these kinds of experiences on our platform. And today, we're actually able to say that we're a true business partner to some of the world's biggest brands. So expect to see more of this activity happening, not only on eBay, but on the likes of Facebook and on whatever other distribution point you may have where consumers are ready to spend money. And as retail itself goes multi-channel, we think that the advertising and promotional vehicles within these retail environments will also change. So expect to see the rise of what we're calling online retail media. And believe it or not, it's actually not a revolutionary concept. It's actually quite an established one. So if you think about world-class FMCG businesses like Coca-Cola, traditionally they've spent the lion's share of their marketing and distribution spend on a channel that they've called shopper marketing or point-of-sale advertising. And we see it every day when we go to the grocery store to pick up a pint of milk. As we walk in, we're hit with a billboard reminding us about Coca-Cola, and then before we know it, we're at the cash register and we're hit with another advert saying, it's fresh and tasty, and you end up leaving the store with a pint of milk and a bottle of Coca-Cola, right? So companies like Coca-Cola have had a deep-seated mentality of spending money at the point of sale to make sure that they can get into the consideration set of how consumers think. And today, we haven't yet seen that marketing mentality translate online, but I think it's a trend that we can expect to see happen over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think that this quote from Guy Philipson, who's the CEO of the IAB in Europe, pretty much sums it up. So Guy says that the majority of retailers in this country occupy significant space in terms of footfall in the top 50 websites. And many more of them will dial up the media opportunities that they offer to brands, and this will become a very attractive proposition for advertisers. So, and it makes a lot of sense, right? You're talking about audiences that are in a shopping mindset. They've got their wallets open. And if you couple that with many websites' ability to use the data that they sit on to create really powerful targeting propositions, I think that it's a trend that's undeniable. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about dynamic creative formats and how technology is enabling retailers and brands to have even deeper conversations with potential customers. And I think one of the more interesting ones is what's going on in the world of augmented reality, which, 2 years ago, still sci-fi. In today's world, I'm seeing a lot of really cool instances of brands and media agencies using augmented reality to be able to really communicate well with their potential buyers. So I've got a couple of videos that will hopefully bring this to light. So the first one is a great campaign from Lynx. And I won't spoil the surprise, but let's see if the video plays.
Platform 12, order 0902, service to Brighton. Genuinely amazing. An angel came out of nowhere on the screen and you could just interact with him. Brilliant, really cool. And she disappeared. Come with me, come with me, come with me. After there's an actual person there at the start. It was amazing, I don't know how they did it.
So I think so. The point of showing that video is just to show how the technology's progressed, and I think that's pretty cool, right? Using augmented reality to be able to create that level of engagement with consumers, I think, is very, very spectacular and something that I don't think the industry could have done a year or two ago. Now let's look at the technology with a bit more of a retail lens on, and imagine that you're at home and you get in the post a pamphlet from Olympus advertising their latest digital camera. And then you sit down on your couch and, in front of your internet-enabled smart TV, and it prompts you to engage with an experience a little bit like this.
Hi, welcome to the augmented reality 3D experience of the new Olympus pen, the EPL1. Now, if you're watching this right now, either you don't have a webcam or you don't have a marker. This is the marker. It's a piece of paper that can be downloaded from this site. Take the marker, hold it up to the camera, and there you go. You have a full experience of what our camera looks like. This is actual size. Now, scroll over any of these yellow dots right here. You can see down below, it tells you what it is. So this is the flash. Click on it, and there's the flash. You can also see this camera has removable lenses and a big image sensor, and there you go, right there. Now, it also, click here, and you can take a picture of yourself. Down below here, send it through email or send it through Facebook. Now I'm going to turn the camera.
So I think what brands and retailers will be able to do in the future in terms of how they choose to communicate with their buyers and potential buyers will only be enhanced by these kinds of technologies. And I think that we're still at the beginning of what media agencies and marketers are able to do with this kind of stuff. So I think sky's the limit. And that, everyone, is the end of the presentation. So if you're interested in the full research, it'll be available on ebayadvertising.com, I think late October or sometime soon. And I think that we've got time for questions. If you've got any questions, please don't be shy.